I can take some slings and arrows, but I'm certain the honourable member wasn't referring to the Speaker. The honourable member from Dauphin, Swan River, Neepawa.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and time is up.
That's right.
I recently visited a local food bank in Dauphin, Manitoba, where the volunteers told me they can't keep up with the increased demand. But this Prime Minister does not care, as he plans to quadruple the carbon tax and force Manitoba families to pay $1,300 in carbon taxes every single year.
Unbelievable.
Manitobans can't afford this costly carbon tax. So when will the Prime Minister give Canadians a choice and call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister for Families, Children and Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recently had the opportunity to be in Manitoba and to speak with some parents about what they're facing there. I had the opportunity to announce alongside the Deputy Prime Minister that we've come to an agreement on our national school food program that will see this school year, Mr. Speaker, over 19,000 more children receive food at school, over a $17 million commitment over 3 years. That's what we do on this side of the House to ensure that families are supported, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Port Moody, Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, flight attendants, who are predominantly women, work an average of 35 hours a month unpaid. Wow. Consecutive Liberal and Conservative governments have overlooked this issue for decades. Yeah. The big airline bosses are profiting off of unpaid labor of flight attendants. It's time for this exploitation to end. Today, I will be tabling a bill to end unpaid work for all flight attendants in Canada. Will this government support it?
Good question. Here.
The Honourable Minister for Seniors and Labour.
Mr. Speaker, Canadian airlines are, of course, private sector entities. The government sets a minimum standard and lets the hard work of collective bargaining take it from there. Flight attendants have a collective agreement which sets out their hours and their wages, and it's not my place to comment on it, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, they are dying in the streets, on park benches, in alleyways, or even in outdoor toilets. The number of homeless individuals who have died has skyrocketed. It has tripled over the last few years. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, because many of the deaths are not recorded. This housing crisis is killing people. And the Liberals and the Conservatives have let this crisis get worse in order to make big developers richer. They have placed profits above people. What will the Liberals do to house people and save lives? The Honourable Minister for Economic Development of Quebec. My colleague and I both represent the eastern part of Montreal. And we see that there is a human crisis here. Unlike the Conservatives, who are exploiting this misery to score points, we on this side of the House will be working hard with municipalities to put a roof over everyone's head.
The Honourable Member from Etobicoke Centre.
Mr. Speaker, recently I spoke in this House about the growth of radical far-right movements. They've organized disinformation campaigns, impacted how some people and politicians treat others, and have led some politicians to act against the best interests of Canadians. Our government has said that Canada will stand with the Ukrainian people until they win. Ukraine must win because their victory is essential to Canada's security. There is a coordinated Russian campaign to spread disinformation, sow distrust, and encourage isolationism. Could the Minister of International Trade please share with us how Russian foreign interference is a threat to our support of Ukraine and to all Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member for Etobicoke Centre for his steadfast support for Ukraine. The Conservative leader's dismissal of Ukraine as a faraway land is shameful.
Shame.
Their willingness to appease far-right disinformation, often fueled by foreign actors like Russia, undermines democracy and the Canadian values. Canadians deserve leadership that stands firmly against these dangerous influences. While Conservatives abandon Ukraine, on this side of the House, we will keep supporting Ukraine until they win this war. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Again, I'm going to remind all members, please, to not take the floor when they are not recognized by the chair, so that the chair can listen and all members can hear the questions and the answers. The honourable member from Haldimand, Norfolk.
After 9 years of the NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and now time is up. At a time when Canadians are skipping meals and many are living paycheck to paycheck, the Liberals have siphoned $400 million of taxpayer money to contracts for their friends at the Green Slush Fund. The Liberal-appointed board has racked up at least 186 conflict of interest. When will this government end the cover-up so that this House can get back to helping Canadians deal with the cost of living crisis that they create?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Disappointing, Mr. Speaker. After 9 years, the same slogan, Mr. Speaker, the same type of disinformation, the same time of false accusation. Mr. Speaker, it's time to get real. The Conservatives know very well that we acted timely to dissolve that organization, Mr. Speaker. The board has resigned, the CEO has resigned, and the organization no longer exists. We made a solemn promise to Canadians was to go to the bottom of this. That's what we did, Mr. Speaker, and they should let this House do the important work is to work for Canadians instead of filibustering their own motion, Mr. Speaker. It's shameful what they're doing.
Order. The honourable member from Haldimand, Norfolk.
Mr. Speaker, what is shameful is cover-up. This Liberal government is still in contempt of Parliament by refusing to turn over the documents that could certainly reveal the depths of their corruption at the Green Slush Fund. So now they have paralyzed Parliament in order to hide their scandal. Meanwhile, Canadians are suffering through unprecedented food, crime, and housing crisis that they created. Will they finally turn over the documents today and give Canadians the answers that they deserve?
That's right. Let's go. The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What my honourable colleague is saying is false. The government has handed over thousands of documents, just done so in a way that protects the charter rights of Canadians. What is true, Mr. Speaker, is that the Conservatives are filibustering their own motion because they don't want to respect your ruling, which asked that this unprecedented motion would go to committee. Mr. Speaker, I think there's only one thing the Conservatives are afraid of. They don't want this House to get to work because they know that if there's another confidence motion, the Conservative leader will lose it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
There you go. Here.
The honourable member from Barrie Innisfil.
Well, after 9 years of this NDP Liberal coalition, taxes, costs, and crime are all up, and now their time is up. After Liberal-appointed board members of SDTC were caught funneling $400 million tax dollars to 186 of their companies, why won't the NDP Liberals end the cover-up today by releasing the documents as Parliament ordered and that you agreed with, Mr. Speaker, so that there can be accountability for the obvious corruption and potential crimes that have taken place under this costly coalition?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The truth is, your ruling was to send this matter to committee for further study because it was unprecedented what the Conservatives were asking for. Mr. Speaker, we agree with your ruling. It is only the Conservatives who are obstructing their own obstruction because they don't want the truth to come out, which is that they are trying to abuse the extraordinary privileges they have to override the rights of Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Barrie Innisfil.
Well, the truth is that there is more proof there that these Liberals are not worth the cost, the crime, and the corruption. Here are the facts. 186 conflicts of interest took place. 400 million tax dollars were funneled to the companies of Liberal-appointed board members. You, Mr. Speaker, ruled that the evidence needs to be handed over unredacted as Parliament has demanded. Why are the NDP Liberals not releasing the documents? What and who are they covering up for?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House comes.
It's typical for the Conservatives to omit the facts that are inconvenient to them, because the fact of the matter is that we have provided thousands of pages of documents already, that we are respecting your ruling, which is to send this matter to committee for further study, because I think, as all Canadians would appreciate and expect, they expect that police follow due process. They expect that parliamentarians support their rights. They would expect that parliamentarians don't try to abuse their extraordinary powers to go after their own partisan vendettas and attack Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good answer.
The Honourable Member for Rivière du Nord. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, 3 vehicles have been set on fire in just 3 days in Ahuntsic. The federal government needs to realize that Quebec is now once again in a gang war with members that are younger and younger, practically child soldiers. This war is also costing innocent lives, like the lives of Léonore Géaudy and her 7-year-old daughter Vérane, who were collateral victims of criminal arson in Old Montreal on October 5th. And yet we're getting radio silence from Ottawa. What is this government waiting for? Why doesn't it crack down on these criminal gangs? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, we are not waiting. We are taking strong action. We are increasing staffing at the RCMP. We are investing in areas where the Conservatives cut, for example, in border services, and we are doing this in order to crack down on the criminal gangs. I had a very positive discussion with Minister Bonnardel during our federal provincial meeting last week. We agreed to continue working together. I will support him in what he's doing to ensure, for example, that drones cannot smuggle contraband into Quebec prisons. We will work together to do something about this. The Honourable Member. That's just not enough, Mr. Speaker. This gang warfare is affecting all of Quebec. In Montreal, 2 people died in an extortion-related arson case. In Frampton, a 14-year-old youth died, and it seems that it was because he was trying to attack the Hells Angels. Imagine that. In Quebec and in Quebec City and in maritime Quebec, it's been open warfare for months. On September 20th, Quebec police was warning other police agencies that this warfare could be even worse than in the 90s, and it's only gotten more serious since then. Does the government understand how bad things are getting? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, we understand that we need to protect the public in Quebec and elsewhere, and that's exactly what we're doing every day. I am very pleased to see that the RCMP is working with its Quebec partners, whether the Montreal Police, the Quebec Police, Quebec City Police. Mr. Duhem, the RCMP Commissioner, often talks to me about the fact that there are joint groups that are working hard to do something about gang warfare. We will continue to work hard, and I do believe that the Bloc Québécois should be supporting the federal government in this.
The Honourable Member.